Initially, naturally aspirated engines of the Skyactiv family were offered for the Mazda 6, a 2.0-liter PVPS. Depending on the market, it develops 145 to 165 horsepower, and a 2.5-liter PYVPS, 192 to 194 horsepower. The latter was modernized in 2017. In particular, a function appeared to turn off 2 cylinders in partial load modes. At the same time, the power line was supplemented by a 2.5-liter PYVPTS turbo engine, 231 horsepower. In addition, a 2.2-liter SHVPTS turbo diesel, 150 to 184 horsepower, was offered on the European market. Skyactiv engines are significantly different from their predecessors and have a number of remarkable technical solutions, but we will not repeat ourselves. We previously dissected in detail the design of aspirated engines using the example of the CX-5 crossover of the first and second generations, so we recommend reading it. Today we are interested in the issues of operation and reliability of these motors. We will concentrate on this. First of all, let's talk about atmospheric gasoline versions as the most relevant for this model. What is important for potential and current owners to know about Skyactiv is that the engines, despite their structural complexity, turned out to be reliable, but demanding of fuels, lubricants, and consumables. In particular, given the high geometric compression ratio, 14.0 to 1 for a 2.0-liter engine and 13.0 to 1 for a 2.5-liter engine, the octane number of the gasoline used should not be lower than 95 units. It must be of high quality, since the injection pump and fuel system injectors, direct injection, is used here, are sensitive to this and are not cheap to replace. I have good news for you. Now, if you are planning to buy a used car, or learn more about your car, you no longer need to search for the information you need on the internet. We have collected everything in one place for you, on the website carmi.pro. Here you can find out everything about the car, what breaks and at what mileage, any problems with engines, chassis or gearboxes, which trim levels are better not to mess with, and how not to lose money buying a used car. You will learn all this on carm.pro. It is also important to use high-quality iridium spark plugs, since they last at least 75,000 kilometers, and can last more than 100,000 kilometers. But the main thing here is not to overdo it with replacement intervals. Servicemen periodically encounter the failure of expensive ignition coils. The 0W20 oil recommended for use is expensive, however, the manufacturer also allows the more affordable 5W30. The main thing is that it meets the API-SN and ASIA A5/B5 standards. During normal operation, engines do not suffer from oil burns, but those owners who often drive at high speeds on autobahns have noted that in such modes, when the engine runs for a long time at high speeds, waste consumption becomes noticeable. The timing chain drive lasts at least 150,000 kilometers, and theoretically it can last 300 to 400,000. Which is comparable to the service life of the motor itself. This probably depends on the nature of operation and maintenance. Hydraulic compensators allow you not to think about adjusting the thermal clearances of the valves. But what is worth keeping an eye on, and during each maintenance, is the condition of the attachment belts, as well as the tensioner. There have been cases of breakage. The earliest series of engines were marked by defective camshafts, and in the summer of 2019, cars with 2.5-liter engines were recalled due to a faulty control module. But all these problems were eliminated by the manufacturer. But what you can expect over time is fogging of the exhaust phase regulator activator and increased vibrations, and different owners describe various measures to solve this problem, from cleaning the throttle valve to replacing the engine mount. Also, Russian owners of the Mazda 6 and CX-5 have encountered clogging and shedding of the catalyst, but this may be due to the quality of the fuel used. In any case, gasoline engines can be safely called reliable. They have no serious problems, and the existing ones will not ruin the owner. With a 2.2-liter diesel engine, everything is more complicated. It has a very unreliable vacuum pump, as well as weak fuel injector mountings. The worst thing is that both problems can lead to oil starvation, albeit in different scenarios, but the result can be sad major damage to the engine. Against this background, traditional, diesel, troubles with common rail equipment or ecology seem like a trifle. So, if you choose Skyactiv on heavy fuel, check the fastening of the injectors and the condition of the vacuum pump. If you suspect problems in this regard, do not delay and contact service. Mechanics can most often be found on diesel versions, although it was also installed on cars with a 2.0-liter gasoline engine. There are no problems with it. The clutch lasts at least 150 to 170,000 kilometers. But most often the Mazda 6 was equipped with a 6-speed Skyactiv drive automatic transmission. In general, it can be considered reliable, but you should keep in mind that early versions with gasoline engines had several sores that could manifest themselves in the cars of drivers who like to sink at traffic lights. Again, a detailed analysis can be read here, but in a nutshell, this is the vibration of the central bearing of the housing, as well as the misalignment of the high/low double drum, leading to accelerated wear of the unit. In both cases, it is important to promptly pay attention to abnormal operation of the box and promptly carry out repairs, since further operation with these problems will lead to much more serious consequences. Otherwise, the key to health is careful driving and changing the oil every 60,000 kilometers, although, according to the manufacturer, it is filled for the entire service life of the box. Diesel station wagons could be equipped with an all-wheel drive transmission, but in our market these are extremely rare. There is no need to be afraid of all-wheel drive, especially since the loads on a passenger car are not the same as on a heavier crossover that provokes off-road forays. But a check before purchase is needed, and here everything is standard: inspection of the transmission for oil leaks, integrity of the boots, absence of excessive play, etc. The 6 is durable. Even the stabilizer struts in the suspension last more than 60,000 kilometers. The remaining parts can easily be maintained for 100,000 kilometers. Ball joints, as intended by the designers, are changed along with the levers, but in practice they are repressed. The only trouble that is relevant for our climatic conditions, when, in the course of adjusting the wheel alignment angles, you have to unscrew the bolts in the rear suspension arms, it turns out that over several winters they have become so acidic that they either need to be cared for with the help of chemicals, or, more realistically, just cut it off and install new ones. The steering rack is more reliable than its predecessor, and the brakes are still better serviced. Develop and lubricate the caliper guides at every maintenance. Also, do not forget about the handbrake, including the owners. On cars with an automatic transmission, the parking brake is usually not used, which leads to souring of its elements. Some owners, realizing that the paintwork is quite delicate, roll up the areas most vulnerable to sandblasting and armor film. Others make do with checking and touching up chips, while others do nothing at all, and over time they may encounter local pockets of corrosion. But this can be said about any aged car. In general, the third generation, 6, definitely does not claim to be a rotten thing, but its body still requires attention, especially during intensive use. The main places that need to be monitored are the sills and rear arches. The paint on alloy wheels is also quite actively swelling. The same story with the interior. In terms of wear resistance of finishing materials, it is average, so its condition primarily depends on the care of the previous owners. But even on the oldest examples the interior holds up. With age, crickets may appear, but they do not progress and do not become solitary. This is the question of relatively modest sound insulation. In 2017, it was improved, and the interior itself and its equipment were improved, so that the cars after the last restyling look preferable. The electrical equipment is reliable. The only common problem is the breakdown of the folding mechanism for the exterior mirrors, and some owners prefer to replace the plastic proprietary mechanism with a more durable Chinese one with a metal filling. On Russian forums they write that over time the speakers of the Bose audio system begin to wheeze, but apparently this problem is infrequent and perhaps happens to those who listen to music too loudly. As in the case of the CX-5, some owners of earlier Mazda 6 versions encountered incorrect operation of the stop/start system, trademark I-stop, due to a weak battery. The company solved the problem by replacing the batteries, and at the same time changing the operating algorithm of the system in order to prevent the battery from being discharged. This is how we quietly approach the issue of power units. What about their reliability? Despite the increased complexity of the design, the third-generation Mazda 6 remains at its best in terms of reliability. But the car has become even more demanding in terms of careful operation, the quality of the fuels and lubricants used, consumables, and maintenance. At the same time, the cost of solving problems has increased. Repairing a high-tech engine or automatic transmission will be more expensive than simpler units of the previous generation.